Well, this is a speech that I gave at a big TED event, which is supposed to be in complete silence. So if the heavens can help us, it might be quite handy. Over 100 years ago, a great inspiration to me, an ambitious Anglo-Irish mariner married a Scottish woman and was appointed the secretary of the Royal Geographical Society in Scotland and started working there near the banks of the River Clyde. It was in these great shipbuilding docks that he started dreaming of becoming one of the first to set foot on the remotest place on Earth. After many ups and downs, he was lauded and knighted for his achievements in the era of the famed polar explorers. And then he settled down, but only to dream again, this time of the final great polar challenge, crossing the last untraversed continent on Earth, over the South Pole. He raised the money and gathered 26 others, and in 1914, the ship Endurance set sail towards the other side of the Earth. But as those familiar with this epic journey well know, nearing Antarctica, the ship was crushed by ice floes and gales never seen before. Their hopes of success were dashed. They found themselves in even greater peril than they had before. And so alone, they saw their ship sink before their eyes, with only what they could salvage before their only hope of leaving the island. I'm sorry. Before their ship sank before their eyes. Facing certain death, with just months of supplies to survive, they did not lose hope. As expected, standard procedure was followed. The crew was deemed lost at sea. No rescue parties came. Why would they? The chances of finding the crew, dead or alive, were next to zero. All it would be was more time and risk and cost. The ship of the Endurance were destined to die on the ice, hopeless and alone. Despite incredible cold, 6 months of absolute darkness, each of the crew was still alive, kept so by the power of hope and leadership and teamwork, and a wholesome, balanced diet of penguins. Real penguins, not the chocolate ones. Those were invented by William MacDonald in Glasgow 27 years later, but that's another story. 16 months after the ship sank, the captain saw that the end was nigh. Only one chance remained to save his crew, one chance for these people to return to their homes. But this would mean attempting something never tried, ever before, risky to the extreme, and on paper, really quite ridiculous. But what was the alternative? Wasting away, waiting for the end? An incredibly small glimmer of hope. What was it? A true moonshot, a tiny island in the middle of the raging southern oceans, beset on all sides by 60-foot waves, and all they had was a tiny little wooden boat, their target 800 miles from where they stood, across an uncrossable sea. This little wooden boat had enough to squeeze on 6 of them, carefully selected for their powers in navigation, collaboration, and teamwork. Pascal's wager, the tiniest chance for the infinite prize, is worth the risk. In this case, the prize of 26 lives. No question, but no foolish move either. So what began, many believe, is still the greatest open boat voyage of all time, powered above all by hope, but not just hope. Hope and 3 other things: endurance, adaptation, and data. Fast forward a century, and we find ourselves on the same planet, but a very different world. Satellites with atomic clocks are circling the Earth. GPS is in everyone's hands. Sat phones connect every place on the planet. Thousands of boats and planes are crossing the great oceans every day. UK to Antarctica can be booked on lastminute.com. And the most common crises in the Antarctic are the midlife crises of the tourists running marathons on the ice. In the very heart of exponential technology innovation, a Silicon Valley pioneer has just sold his incredible biotech company. He's exercising at home and falls unconscious. Overexertion? No. The news is broken to him. He's diagnosed with the most lethal of all cancers, glioblastoma multiforme, or GBM. So he finds himself thrown into his incurable sea. Most are dead within 12 months. Science has made little progress, and though a little less damaging before, treatment has hardly changed in 40 years. So surrounded by connected information, biotechnology, and computer science that would have seemed like alien inventions on the ship Endurance, our Silicon Valley pioneer finds himself facing the inevitable, but ready to take the risk to save his life. He puts together his team of 6. They deeply analyze the problem to understand all the options before they set off. They sequence the tumor for its DNA, its RNA, its metabolism, its immunology. His compass, his sextant, and his map are new biomarkers, liquid biopsies, and ways of imaging to detect if the cancer is growing or shrinking or evolving in near real time, even deep within his brain. Assisted by artificial intelligence, they plan what route to take, which treatments in which order. They monitor continually, recording meticulously, enduring and adapting, but always driven by data and sharing it. Nearly 2 years on, despite the roughest of seas, they are still on target to reach their tiny island. In the same year, in the UK, 3,000 others have received the same diagnosis of GBM and receiving standard of care and facing their fate. On her way to dinner, to support budding social entrepreneurs, a remarkable woman, a former social worker turned MP, turned peer in the House of Lords, a campaigner her whole life for social justice, the person who brought to the UK the London 2012 Olympic Games, fell unconscious at home without warning, getting into a taxi just before her 70th birthday. Overexertion? No. She too received the devastating diagnosis of GBM. A friend of hers heard about what was going on in Silicon Valley, and special centers far and wide exploring new routes to treatment offered their services to her, and so too began her journey to cross the incurable sea. Despite unprecedented access to every conceivable option, her priority was only to accelerate breakthrough therapies for others. There was a turning point in her journey, and one I have never seen before in my career, and one I shall never forget. The only time she cried in her treatment was when she was in the waiting room with other patients like her, and there she realized that it was only because of a lack of privilege and access that they had fewer options. She immediately moved to hold a debate in the House of Lords to bring about flash freezing of tumors for deeper diagnosis, collaborative data sharing, and next-generation adaptive combination therapies to become routine practice. So what are these adaptive trials? Well, let's go back to Sir Ernest Shackleton and his little boat and the tiny island. Before setting off, they deeply analyzed the problems and set out all of their options. They plotted a path and chose a crew, and then they equipped themselves with all that they needed. And most importantly, they had the tools to navigate their position continuously, to endure and adapt at the earliest opportunity. So why don't we do such real-time navigation in cancer today, even though we're doing it crossing all the great oceans in boats and planes? Well, if we used our current medical model when we flew aircraft, this is how it would look. We're here in Sofia, and somebody believes that they've made a discovery for a new route for people to fly to New York. And we design an experiment where we take 1,000 planes and point them in exactly the same direction. 100 make it to Boston, 300 make it all the way to New York, 100 make it all the way to Washington, D.C., but half of them fall out of the sky just as they did before, and that's a blockbuster drug. For 40 years, or until we get new evidence, this is the exact route that we religiously follow. That's aviation using medical science. No, of course they don't do that. They examine the weather before they take off. They plan the routes for each individual flight. They measure their exact position in real time and adapt, recording everything, reporting to the plane behind theirs and the plane behind that and the plane behind that. If they get a great result, they learn from it. If a plane falls out, they learn from it too. Learning not over decades, but over days. And they learn by analyzing millions of flights, what's the most likely to work and what won't for a given plane on a given route on any given day. This has become routine in aviation and many other industries, including finance, security, and commerce. But why not in medicine? Because it was impossible and unaffordable until just a few years ago. But it is becoming impossible today, and not just for the lucky few in Silicon Valley. Scientists hearing this will be writhing. The scientist in me is writhing too, because how do you know which drug is working and which is not? This isn't good medical science. You're right. It's terrible medical science, but it's brilliant data science. And facing complex, fast-evolving systems biology problems where there is no single target to hit, there is no single solution, patients cannot wait for A versus B trials almost destined to fail in isolation. It's time to combine medical science with data science. Complex cancer is a complex web of diseases. Finding a cure is like finding 200 fast-moving needles in a haystack all at the same time. Our basic medical science is so powerful, but we must now add to it this new kind of science, data science. Tessa Jowell and her amazing daughter Jess Mills founded Act for Cancer in January 2018. Its first mission, the UK-led Brain Cancer Moonshot, the Dame Tessa Jowell Brain Cancer Mission as it is now known. ACTs, Adaptive Combination Trials. These ACTs for cancer aim to become universally accessible for all those, a new standard of care for those currently facing untreatable disease. Everyone on an ACT will have their tumor properly frozen, deeply sequenced, and better understood, interpreted by a new generation of molecular oncologists and data scientists. Routes through pre-approved combinations of targeted therapies, immunotherapies, metabolic therapies, maybe even supportive diets, will be laid out, computed by AI, navigated by doctors, collaborating with other experts and their patients and their carers. Therapies need not be as expensive or toxic. They may be new ones, they may be old ones. They may be ones used in other cancers or used for other things. But most crucially, we will accurately and efficiently monitor our position in real time. Is our current route working or not? Is our little wooden boat sinking or on track, going backwards or afloat? Just like every ship crossing every ocean today. Moreover, we will record and learn from every move the real-world experience of what patients and their loved ones are seeing every day in their expert eyes. Starting with brain cancer, ACT's mission is to build the world's first national adaptive trial platform, not just for GBM, but for all untreatable cancers, and then perhaps for other diseases too. And not just for the UK, but for other health systems also. That, no question, is a way to change the world. For me, after 20 years as a doctor and 30 as a geek, it is a turning point in how we research medicine as scientists, in how we practice medicine as doctors, and how we believe in medicine as patients. Shackleton made it to South Georgia Island. It was not a fluke. Our Silicon Valley pioneer is still en route 30 months on, along with several others following his path. Tessa Jowell made it a good long way with a great quality of life and with as much love and support around her that anyone could dream of. But sadly, a year ago, just a few days, last Sunday, 11 months after her diagnosis, she too was hit by one of those 60-foot waves and passed away. She famously said in her final speech, "In the end, what gives a life meaning is not only how it is lived, but how it draws to a close." She died with meaning, and with sharing, and with learning, and with hope, if not for her, then for all others like her. Her last words to me were, "We've done everything we can, haven't we?" And I reassured her. She gripped my hand and looked me squarely in the eye and said, "No, I mean we've done everything we can for everyone else, haven't we?" I think, though, it is best that we hear in her own words what she wanted for all others with incurable cancer like her.
Seamus Heaney's last words were, Noteli timeri, do not be afraid. I am not afraid. I am fearful that this new and important approach may be put into the too difficult box. But I also have such great hope. So many cancer patients collaborate and support each other every day. They create that community of love and determination that they find each other every day. All we now ask is that doctors and health systems learn to do the same, and for us to work together, to learn from each other. In the end, what gives a life meaning is not only how it is lived, but how it draws to a close. I hope that this debate will give hope to other cancer patients like me, so that we can live well together with cancer, not just dying of it. All of us, for longer. Thank you.
I urge us to find the Ernest Shackleton inside of us. Find the Silicon Valley pioneer inside of us. Find the Tessa Jowell inside of us. So that for all of those that find ourselves drowning in the incurable sea, we can strive towards cures. And if not cures, then learning. And if not learning, then purpose and meaning. And if not that, then above all, hope. Thank you.